My name is Birgir Ragnarsson. I'm a co-founder of Anata, a Microsoft ISV, focusing on device industries. It is a great pleasure to be talking at this event, and over the next 50 minutes, I would like to tell you a bit about my company, the role it plays in monetizing products from the factory gate, some of the themes we see in market, along with some of the learnings we have had with delivering solutions around the world. As the slide states, this is about Microsoft Dynamics 365, so everything I talk about today is delivered through a solution that is an extension of this platform or an integrated Azure workload. Now, as for the agenda, I don't have many slides because I want to spend more time talking about our customers, what they see as trends or threats in the market, and what they are doing with Anata solutions to address those trends and threats. I will talk about a little bit about Anata and the products we offer through processes and customers. I do, however, want to spend a little bit of time of where and why Anata started, as it's relevant in today's market and informs you kind of where we come from and why we do things like we do. But first of all, here's an overview of where we have customers that are already live in our system. And every month there's a new dot coming onto that map. And as can be seen, we started out in Europe and we have maybe the biggest cluster there. But currently the highest growth in percentages is actually Southeast Asia, Middle East and Africa, and South America. Now, that is no surprise that our world is very much driven by the Microsoft data center bits because we focus on delivering the solutions in the cloud. And it's fair to say that we have seen tremendous increase in coverage in the Middle East and Africa region, with both the Emirates and South Africa data centers. Going back 20 years when we started Anata, the picture was quite different. I'm from Iceland, although I'm sitting in Malaysia where we have a development center. For which of you that don't know, Iceland is a large, sparsely populated island, far from anywhere in the North Atlantic. Population is geographically dispersed with extreme weather events and pretty nasty roads to contend with. In this environment, where we started, in essence, the challenge was that Iceland is staged by boat from the factories of Europe or US. And even the shortest flight takes over 2 hours. So in addition, within the island itself, travel from location to location can be time-consuming, and in some cases quite dangerous, like in wintertime. So when companies there are dealing with supply chain issues, they have to ensure that anything brought onto the island has a market, because once it's there, it's expensive to sell it anywhere else. And any device on the island has to have a spare parts maintained, and every field service technician has to have the spare parts and tool to hand when he travels to what can be a remote location to fix a machine. And those remote locations are we processing geothermal energy and things like that. And these are up in the highlands often, where the machines are. So it's not exactly a taxi ride with a part. So within these conditions, it is for these conditions that we developed our solutions on top of the Dynamics platform. And then we can thank our brands for taking us from there to all around the world. But we never forgotten the focus to ensure that the device that come out of the factory gate match the local market need and can be serviced with the maximum end customer satisfaction, and not least profitability. So I've mentioned a few types of device, so let's take a look at the device in a bit more detail. So Anata traditionally focuses on the importation, distribution, service, leasing, renting, on off-road machinery, such as diggers, tractors, marine engines, and as well for on-road machinery, which is vehicles, buses, trucks, motorbikes, and so forth. Over the years, our customers typically handle devices in these two categories, but the flexibility of the underlying that 365 platform, along with the continuous product enhancement that we had been making, we have found ourselves more and more that we are the best fit for a number of other device-based product markets. And with the COVID situation, it has accelerated this process. There has to be a certain impetus and accelerator to get to the cloud in order to engage with customer in new ways and have systems in place that facilitate remote working and are agile enough to handle unforeseen events. And we have seen some great examples of how our customers dealt with those challenges. And it is clear that those that were already in the cloud versus a few still on premise are much more agile. So with that in mind, we took a decision to add a kind of third focus line into our product portfolio, exclusively focusing on the monetization of medical devices. So let's take a look at some of the specific cases that showcase those transformations and the possibilities. And let's start by maybe mention a little bit the resilient supply chain. There's a lot of talk about resilient supply chain these days. And quite often it's being discussed from the manufacturing viewpoint. Basically, sitting on a manufacturing plant looking outwards, both up and down. We often refer to the manufacturing cycle as the upstream part of the device life cycle, and then after it leaves the factory gate as a downstream. So what we tend to do is we look at the resilient and the supply chain a little bit more holistically maybe than the current discussion has been, or even focusing more on what we call the downstream part. That is the journey of the device after it leaves the factory door. We can also refer to that part as an upstream from the viewpoint of the customer. So after all, it is a customer journey that needs to inform the supply chain of demand, inform the factory, which then informs upstream. We don't, at Anata, we don't really talk about selling technology. Our starting point is to have that discussion about the customer needs, and from that sketch out what has to be presented and then work back to the underlying infrastructure. So this is a very useful way to think about your business, as very often we get approached, let's say, for example, with a case to replace an on-premise CRM system and move it to the cloud. But then when we look at what they want to replace, we see many processes that have been developed at a totally wrong layer of applications. We see bespoke development of functionality, for example, in a frontline CRM system, where they have bespoke developed inventory management and other supply chain controls that are actually governed by accounting rules and regulation. It is not the front end really to take care of. Same with tax calculation and so on. These should be built in the back end where the supply chain management resides at the core of it, and then expose the data to front end systems like CRM or other appropriate user interfacing apps, such as those that can be deployed with the Power Platform, like Power Apps, simply displayed as data that has been interpreted and transferred by AI and Power BI through insights, providing employees with the proper insights into the supply chain issues. So placing your critical supply chain processes into front-end system which was not designed to handle those processes is pretty disastrous for supply chain resilience. Now that I've talked at a high level, I would like to share some examples of that kind of supports these themes I've been mentioning. So let's start with the first customer case. This customer case turned out to be quite an interesting one, as much for things we didn't expect as for the things we did. They have a service operation that works on large mission-critical power units and wanted to take advantage of the IoT opportunities to connect into those power units and gather operating data in order to better anticipate the failure and plan the preventive maintenance. So these connections seemed pretty straightforward. And after some trial and error, they were able to pull out vast amounts of data. The problem came when they tried to take actions based on this data lake that they had created, as they found that the system they thought the service unit was using to generate work orders, understand technician availability and certifications, see when the part would arrive on site, etc., was actually kept up to date after the event. And the actual way of working was through emails, documents, post-it notes, and so forth. So this was addressed by replacing that system with Dynamics 365 and Anata solution. But that's not a surprise. That is a common thing. What we were surprised by was that the data captured from the device and the data from the business flow were rich enough to enable that company to move totally from serving on a time and material basis to offering a product as a service where the power units are provided to the end customer on a yearly contract at a much higher margin than the previous model, at the same time at a higher satisfaction rate from the customer. So this disruption through changes in how devices and services are monetized through the supply chain may be some way off for your business, but it's a good practice, as can be seen in this example, to ensure that when you are selecting a new system, you look at what you might want it to do, as long as you know you do need it to do. Now, another case, as we talked about before, our belief is that the supply chain has to be informed by and include your customer experience. And we're seeing a lot more companies looking to use customer service as differentiators. For this to really materialize, you need a modern cloud-based system. So there are different ways to get there. Evolution and addition of new business models integrated into existing legacy systems, or complete rip and replace. For the customer case here, they wanted to increase the revenue they generated from after-sales activities, as a traditional channel business was fairly saturated. So they decided to add a rental business unit to rent out the machines. And when they looked at building out their existing system to offer this, they understood it would be very expensive, take over a year per country, and would be a dead-end investment, as it would not be cloud optimized. So instead of doing that, they took our Anata rental solution into the cloud, integrated it into the legacy system, and then are process by process moved to the cloud with their legacy system. Now, for the rental business unit, the system delivery and implementation from the kickoff meeting until the first machine was actually rented out in the new system was exactly 8 weeks. So granted, it was a new business unit without any legacy baggage. But keep in mind that in comparable projects on-premise in the past, I'm pretty sure it would just have taken 8 weeks just to kind of spec, procure, and set up the hardware for a new system, let alone install and configure the infrastructure software, configuring the business application and training and so forth. Now, maybe the final case example that supports our view on the supply chain is we're working on a multi-country rollout in Africa. So there the company has built up through acquisitions and mergers. And by that, they have gotten into the situation of managing and supporting 3 disparate legacy systems across Africa, and actually over 20 countries on-premise. It totally limits their ability to manage the company at an enterprise level, to have information, take actions based on those information. So they have taken the decision to move now to the cloud, and this comes, of course, with the backup of the new data centers, and are in the process of replacing all 3 of those systems with one system, Dynamics 365 plus Anata, in 20 countries, all running in the cloud. So I hope these examples of how our customers have been able to address challenges by utilizing Microsoft cloud-based solution, along with Anata's industry expertise and industry solutions, has provided you some additional perspective to the benefits of Dynamics, to the benefits of the Azure cloud services. It's been a pleasure talking to you today, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions through my email. Thank you very much.